Hey guys, what's going on teammates? It's Paintball Duke 22 here, and this is Questing in Minecraft episode 47. Now today we are not in our regular Questing in Minecraft world. Today we are doing a Redstone tutorial special. Now this episode 47 is going to be Redstone basics, some things that I feel that you need to know before we get into logic gates or things like that. So without further ado, let's go ahead and begin. This is what a redstone block looks like. Now redstone blocks, they are found around the same level as diamonds, I believe, around 16 or lower, and you mine it with a diamond or iron pickaxe and it will yield redstone dust. So everything in the game is affected by redstone in some way or another. The blocks, the redstone circuitry themselves. Take for example these blocks right here. I have a dispenser, iron door, wooden door, hatch, powered minecart track, pistons, and a note block. So you notice that this doesn't have any redstone leading into it and there's no power. And then you notice here you have redstone leading into each one of these things. So if you hear me referring to things such as an on state or an off state, an off state means that there's no power going into the block, and even if there was redstone dust, it would be non-powered redstone dust. So these things are in their off state, or their default state. These things are in their powered state, or on state, and you can see the redstone circuitry powering up all of these things. The pistons are extended. Let me go ahead and take this redstone torch away really quick, so you can see kind of how the redstone affects. So you notice the dispenser shot and all that fun stuff. Let me recollect this arrow, put it back in here, and we will continue on. Now you may notice I'm using single player commands and too many items. There's just to build this tutorial world. And I do apologize, I kind of have a sinus infection right now, so please bear with me. Anyway, so let's get into some basics. Here on the left we have powered redstone and non-powered redstone. Now the reason this is powered is because the redstone torch is a weird exception. A redstone torch by default is in the on state, the powered state, like this. And we'll get into how you change the state of a redstone torch later. Anyway, you'll notice that you have powered and non-powered redstone wire here, and here I have, for demonstration purposes, we all know that there's 16 different colors of wool. So redstone can only travel for 15 blocks before you need to do something with it, whether it's a repeater or a piston or something like that. Because you notice on the 16th block there's no dust coming from it. It looks just the same as the whole string of non-powered. So if you were to put something at the end of this, say a minecart track, it wouldn't work because the redstone dust, or the current, is not getting, it doesn't have enough charge to get to this point. And if you take this one, it still doesn't have enough to get to this. The only way would be to take this and put it there. Let's see, and then redstone here, and you notice that it lights up. And you can see here, it barely lights up when you get it to the farthest point, even though the redstone dust isn't lit up. Okay, so let's move on to the next thing. Repeaters. Now repeaters take a signal, and they are directional, which means, see the little arrow on the repeater? It means the current has to be going in this direction, but we'll get into that a little bit more. Here's what it looks like when it's powered and non-powered. So, this is how doors are affected. When they're powered, they're open. When they're not powered, they're closed. This shows the directionality of repeaters. If we took this repeater and pointed it at the redstone torch, it stays off. And similar with this, we can see that this redstone torch is off because of this redstone torch. If we take this redstone torch away, the redstone comes on. So why is that? Well, this is kind of how one of the properties of redstone torches. So let me go ahead and explain this. So redstone torches, since they are by default on, they take their current and they pass their power on to any of the blocks that are next to it or above the redstone torch. Now remember how I said any blocks could be affected by redstone? Well, that's because what happens is this torch is powering this block right now. And anytime a block is powered by any redstone source, whether it was a redstone current going into it or anything like that, any redstone torches attached to it become into their opposite charge. So since this torch is on, it's powering this block, and because this block has power, it inverts the signal of the redstone torch, and then it just continues up the chain. So like I said, if we were to take the power and turn this block powered, that would hopefully turn this torch off, because that's what we expect redstone to do. So if this block gets powered, this torch would go off, this torch would go on, and all the way up the chain. So let's go ahead and head over here to this example area, and we will see. So we'll flick the torch, we'll flick the switch, and you see the torches change state because this redstone wire is going into the block and powering it up. So this is how you can move a redstone current vertically. Now one thing you will need to know is this only works going in the up direction. It does not work going down, because redstone torches only affect things that are above it or next to it. So let's go ahead and give another example of how you can get a redstone current carried up. Now this way is not as effective unless you were trying to have things on layers, like if you were trying to string redstone torch this way and off of this level also, if there was some blocks attached to it. Anyway, you can see that this block is off, this torch is powered, and it is giving its power to this block, which turns this torch off and just continues up the chain. So what should happen when we flick the switch is the torches will change the side that they are powered on. And that can come in handy in many useful redstone examples, and we will get into that in a bit. So let's go ahead and head over here and talk about repeaters a little bit. So you'll notice they are directional. So let me go ahead and flick this switch. You notice this one is pointing this way, so it has current coming into it from the switch, and it means it lights it up and it repeats the signal for another 15 blocks. Now here we have redstone splitting, and you notice this one is not lit up because it doesn't have current coming in from this direction, and that is because they are you have to have them in line with the current. And this is the wrong way also. You notice that the current is coming into the block when the arrow is facing that way, so it's not going to light up either. Redstone can travel into repeaters down blocks like this, but not up. So if I were to have a repeater right here, it would not light up, because it's basically trying to jump up a block, and it's not allowed to do that. So right now we have the switch turned on and the signal is going into this block. And remember how I said redstone, when it powers a block, the torch goes off. So let's go ahead and flick this switch really quick and see what happens here. And just as we suspected, this redstone torch gets powered because it's no longer receiving power. The block is no longer receiving power, so the torch is able to stay in its on state. And the torch, since the repeater is in line with the torch, it is getting power, and the redstone after the repeater is getting power also. Also, you'll notice the two redstone on the side are not getting power because they are not in the line of the repeater. So these kind of think of them as linear. You'll notice that torches do not power repeaters when they are placed above them, but you will notice that powered minecart tracks are affected this way by redstone torches. So let's go ahead and give an example of redstone railroad tracks for an example. So here we have pressure. This is called what do they call these? Detector rail. That's what they're called. Detector rails. When a cart passes over them, they power any adjacent blocks or any redstone that is connected to it, either above or below. Well, I don't think above, but below for sure. So let's go ahead and give this minecart a push, and you can see, we'll go ahead and give an example. This should keep on going here. There we go. So you see, it pushes, and when it goes over the button, it powers up these booster rails. And the booster rails boost the cart back and forth, and each time pushing it over the detector rail. So this thing could go back and forth for a while, but we'll go ahead and stop it. Another example is this one right here. So we'll go ahead and push this minecart, and this, you can actually see there's a tiny little bit of a delay, and we could actually put redstone right here. And it's actually kind of going a little bit faster than when I had this set up before. But let me go ahead and do it this way. Let's just go ahead and stick a redstone torch right here. You'll notice the signal is bouncing. And that's because there's a little tiny bit of a delay as the cart goes over the button. So that's just kind of something that that can come in handy with redstone. So let's go over what kinds of things affect redstone current. The first thing that I want to talk about is switches. Now switches can be placed flat on a block, on the sides of a block, but not underneath the block. So, how can switches affect redstone? Well, when placed next to redstone current, you can flick a switch and the redstone current will come on. Also, likewise, the switch's power, when you flick a switch, its power transfers to the block that it's connected to, which means if we flicked this switch, it would transfer the power to this block, which would transfer the power to the redstone circuit. And by doing so, we can see that is what happens. We can flick any of these switches. Sorry, you couldn't really tell. We can flick any of these switches, and you'll see that it transfers the power. Now another thing is blocks can power redstone that is adjacent with them, but they can also power redstone that is underneath. You can see in this example here, when we flick this switch, the redstone current is powered because the switch sends power to the block, which sends power to the current of redstone. And another thing that you notice here, the block isn't actually over the side, not over a piece of redstone. Like if we put a switch here, the redstone wouldn't light up. But the thing is, the switch itself can also power redstone that is beneath it, like so. That can definitely come in handy if you need to. Now the next thing that we're going to talk about is pressure plates. There's two kinds of pressure plates. There's stone pressure plates and wooden pressure plates. Stone pressure plates require mobs or you to stand on them to activate them. Pressure plates can only be placed on a flat surface, so like on the top of a block. You may notice that it works the same way as a switch does, in that you can place it on top of a block and have it carry the current over. Now this is exactly the same. Also, you can put one on top and it transfers the power down through the block and into the redstone current. Now there's only really one difference between stone pressure plates and wooden pressure plates other than texture, where humans can only set off these stone ones, items cannot. You'll notice it does not light up. Now with wooden pressure plates, items can ignite the redstone. That can come in handy if you're needing to make any item traps or anything like that. Now let's get into the last thing before we get into redstone torches. You'll notice I don't have in the line of things that you can place on the ground flat even with the redstone as buttons. That doesn't really work. You will notice that a button will work the same way. The button would power the block. You can place it on either side. Buttons cannot be placed on top of things. I could put one here, but I didn't want it powering this up. Another thing also is that redstone, buttons can also power things that are adjacent to it. So if we put redstone there, there, and there, they would all be powered by this one button. And that's similar to this in some way, but it is more similar to the button being over the redstone, just like with the switch back there. Now this is similar also. You can touch a button and it powers the block, which is over the redstone, which powers the redstone. Now the button is different because with the lever and the switch, if you hit it once, it toggles and it stays on until you hit it again. Now a button, you push it and it will reset itself after a quick second. So you notice you push it once and it goes on and then it turns off. And that can come in handy for in a number of uses that we'll get into later. Now redstone torches. For any redstone that comes in contact with a redstone torch if it's adjacent to a redstone, becomes powered by it. You notice here, you would think that, like by example from these, that the redstone torch would power the block, which would power this. However, that's not the case. The redstone torch, since it's on the block, would power anything placed here, placed above it, and placed below it. You do notice that also that it works the same way here, where the redstone does not power anything underneath the block. Now here you do notice that the torch is placed over redstone, and it works exactly the same as a button placed over redstone and a switch placed over redstone. It's just always on. If you were to invert it by, say, placing a redstone torch right here, actually, let's go like this. I've not given myself enough space here. So we'll put a redstone torch here, and you notice that goes out and affects that way. That was predictable. Okay. So there's one other thing that I want to get into before we close this video for next time. And that is delays with repeaters. You notice I have 4 rows of repeaters here. That represents the 4 different settings in the delays of the repeaters. The farther the gap between these 2 redstone torches, the more of the delay. So let me go ahead and show you. I have 5 repeaters lined up here, each set to the regular setting, the second setting, third, and the fourth. So let's go ahead and flick this switch, and this one is just an inverted signal that will show you how much faster it is to just go through one redstone torch than it is to go through even 5 repeaters. So we'll go ahead and flick the switch, and you can look at the lights and also hear the sounds. So let's flick the switch, and you can see the time that it takes for the repeaters to go through their delays. So let's go ahead and see if we can monitor that. You can see the delay. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Questing in Minecraft, getting to know Redstone basics. And we will see you in Questing in Minecraft episode 48 on Thursday, and we will go over here and get into logic gates. Thanks guys, thanks teammates. This is Paintball Dude 22 out.